this video, we're going to look at the different types of storage, So what you're looking at here is from a 1970s era computer where they were using tape storage. And tape storage is a magnetic storage, so you're storing zeros and ones as positive and negative charges on reels of tape. And so these machines right here would read the reels of tape once they're put in there. Kind of has that old school sci-fi look when you see these tape reels going back and forth reading the data. So really what we're going to look at in this video is optical storage, magnetic storage, solid state storage. We're going to take a look at just each of these categories in a little bit more depth. And one thing I really want to point out you should know about is that secondary storage, or just storage, is non-volatile. So you really need to make sure you know what non-volatile means. Meaning that when there's no longer any power to the storage medium, it continues to remember the zeros and ones that were put there. So solid state storage, like these flash drives, right? Flash drives, flash drives, flash drives, flash drives, flash drives. Solid state storage, like these flash drives, is non-volatile. When I save something to this flash drive, the zeros and ones that are there are always going to be there unless, even if the power goes out. On the other hand, my computer, when things are in memory, inside RAM or inside primary storage, those words are all synonymous, can be used interchangeably. That characteristic for RAM or memory is volatile, meaning if the power goes out, whatever's stored in RAM gets forgotten. So one of the main characteristics of storage, secondary storage, is that it is non-volatile, and that's important to know about. Let's start first by taking a look at some hard disk drives. So this is just kind of what a hard disk drive looks like. That's just the exterior of it, and that's kind of what it looks like. And on the interior of a hard disk drive, you would find something like this. And so what you're looking at there are these platters, and so it has multiple platters. And even though when you look at your hard disk drive in your computer, so if I go to Start and then just go to Explore somehow by like clicking on my name, right-click my drive, choose Properties, right? Here it just looks like one disk, right? That's kind of how it's represented to me. But in actuality, it's multiple disks inside the drive. And the zeros and ones can be stored on the top side or the bottom side of these platters. And then this little arm right here is the read-write head. And there's a read-write head that is on the top side of this platter and on the bottom side of this platter. So for each platter, both the top side and the bottom side, there's this little arm. And that little arm goes back and forth and reads the positive and negative charges in the different little areas on this hard disk drive. And that's how it gets the zeros and ones, how it stores them and how it retrieves them. So this read-write head will both write the zeros and ones, write down, positive and negative charges, and it'll also read the zeros and ones, read the positive and negative charges. That's what the read-write head does. And you can see it's a moving part, and it's moving really close to the hard disk drive platter. So you don't want to jostle your computer when it's being used, because this thing could actually bump the surface of the hard disk drive and distort data. So a good thing to avoid. So that's looking at kind of just what hard disk drives look like. And we also saw, a little bit of tape storage, what tape storage looks like. So here's, old school tape storage. And you notice when you search for a tape storage computer, you do get a lot of old school images. Here's an image that looks a little bit more modern, right? And here's another one, yet again, that definitely looks more modern. We've got a robot. So this kind of tape storage, the way that would work would be for like really archival kind of purposes, where you need to store a lot of data, and then if you are going to retrieve it, you pretty much want to retrieve the entire set of data. And the reason is that with storage, there's two types of ways that information can be stored, and the two ways are direct access and sequential access. Well, what does that mean? Well, with direct access, we could jump directly to a piece of data on the platter, right? So on a hard disk drive, just kind of positioning that. On a hard disk drive, we have direct access to any piece of data anywhere on the hard drive. With sequential access, we have to go buy all the other data first. So the best way to think about this is like a CD right? An example would be a CD, and an example of this would be a tape. So just like you have probably experienced or maybe experienced tapes in a car or somewhere else versus a CD, with a tape, if you just have a brand new cassette tape and you put it in the player and you want to listen to like song 9, you got to fast forward past, you have to fast forward past song 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's sequential access, right? Everything is in sequence, and you have to go buy all of those other songs before you finally get to the song you want to listen to. With a CD, right, the reader doesn't have to pass songs 1 through 8. The reader just jumps right to where song 9 is, right? If you want to listen to song 9, that's direct access. It goes directly to where song 9 is and then starts playing song 9 for you. So it's the same way with hard disk drives. Hard disk drives are direct access, and tape storage, right, is sequential access. So because of that, tape storage is used for like, let me back up my entire system, and I'm just going to archive that. And if I ever need that backup, I'm probably going to be using from the beginning of it to the end of it to restore my entire system. So that's kind of like how tape storage is used. So it's used for large amounts of data which aren't accessed very frequently, whereas hard disk drives, because of the sequential access issue, whereas hard disk drives have the direct access issue. So they're used for data that can be accessed more quickly. And it's really become much more, like the amount that people can store these days, the amount that hard disk drives can hold is pretty phenomenal. So if you just go to Google Shopping, there we go. So hard disk drives have really come down in price, like 1 terabyte for $135, 2 terabytes for $172. That's really pretty amazing. That we could store that much data that inexpensively. So that's when we look at the types of storage, that's a magnetic storage, hard disk drive versus tape storage, and those are using just positive and negative charges to store the zeros and ones. The next thing which is good to know about is sometimes people categorize hard disk drives as both internal, and external. All right, so sometimes you see them categorized that way. And what that means is like an internal hard disk drive would just be like these hard disk drives right here, gets put inside the computer, and an external hard disk drive or a portable hard disk drive would be like something like this. It's going to sit outside the computer. So these are little hard disk drives which you could buy, and they plug in with USB, and they're very much like these flash drives, and even the capacities are starting to get pretty similar. But those are a little bit bigger, and those use the old technology of the platters and the read-write heads, whereas these use the new solid-state technology, solid-state technology. So we've got magnetic hard disk drives and tape storage for the magnetic storage, and then we also have new solid-state drives. And here's what solid-state drives look like. And if you were to open up the inside of a hard disk drive, right, you would see this. That's with the platters and the read-write head. And if you were to open up the inside of a solid-state drive, this is a solid-state drive, you would see this. And just basically, a solid-state drive is a whole bunch of these guys, right? The memory that's inside this flash drive is pretty much the memory that's inside the solid-state drive, but there's just a whole lot more of it inside the solid-state drive. So right now, you can see here is a 64 gigabyte solid-state drive, and my flash drives are like 2 gigabytes, and if we were to go to Costco and search for computers and printers, and we're looking for hard drives and memories, and we want USB flash drives, and then we're looking for internal hard drives, see internal versus external hard drives, and we have one 4 terabyte hard drive for $200. And that's the old traditional hard disk drive, not a solid state drive. And so let's just see if we have any external memory, network, cloud storage, portable. Let's look for external, see if there's any solid state drives. And no, it's all pretty much looking like the hard disk drive technology. But the flash drives, wow, we got a 32 gigabyte flash drive, which is pretty amazing for 25 bucks after a $16.99 after $8 off. That is incredible. So it's just they've really come a long ways. And the solid state drives at Google Shopping, let's see what those are like. Google Shopping, solid state drive. And we've got solid state drives at 500 gigabytes, right? Solid state drive at 500 gigabytes for $373. This is 32 gigabytes for $25, right? So if we bought 10 times that, 320 gigs, that costs us $250. And here we get, so it's about the same, right? About the same price per gigabyte. And so it's just solid state drive. It's just got the same technology that's in these little flash drives, thumb drives, but just in larger capacities, So that's what the solid state drives are. And finally, just to kind of generally look at each of these categories, we've looked at magnetic, we've looked at solid state. And solid state is nice. Again, I know I've said this before, but just to reiterate it, because there's no moving parts. Again, with your hard disk drives, right? With your hard disk drives, well, I think I had that picture here. With your hard disk drives, you have that read-write head, which is a moving part. But with solid state, there's no moving parts. So this type of storage is way more durable. And then secondly, this type of storage is way quicker, because this has to go back and forth and read all the zeros and ones. And the zeros and ones can be accessed even more quickly. They just pull it out. So it's really fast. You don't have to wait for something to move over to a place to grab the zeros and ones. So that's a little bit about solid state drives and magnetic drives. And now let's take a look at optical drives. So again, if you go to Google and you search images for optical drives, you will see, some of the drive categories, which is cool. You see the hard drives, you see the solid state drives. It's always kind of nice to see the terminology I'm teaching you being terminology that's actually being used in the world, so that you could start to see like, oh wow, now I'm understanding this stuff. Like here earlier I talked about video cards last week, and here are video cards. But what we came here to look at was optical drives. And when I type in optical drives, what you start to see are like DVD drives and a Blu-ray drive. So this is all of your CD, DVD, Blu-ray, and that's what optical drives are. And often in these introductory computer concept courses, a distinction will be made, which I've always thought was a pretty stupid distinction, but a distinction will be made between the drive medium and the drive unit or something like that, right? Where the medium is the actual disk that's being written on, and the unit is the one that does the reading and writing. Like, who cares? Like we know what they are, right? That's the disk, and this is where you stick it to read it. So anyhow, that's a little overview of just the different categories when we talk about storage. And a little reminder that storage is referring to one of the main characteristics of storage is that it's non-volatile. And then we have these three categories. We have solid state, magnetic, and optical. And you've learned about hard disk drives and solid state drives, and you've learned about optical drives, and you've learned the difference between hard disk drives and tape for magnetic storage. And you also saw, sequential versus direct access. So tape is sequential access, and like a hard disk drive or a solid state drive or an optical drive, that's all direct access, just like a CD. You can jump right to a song directly, right? Direct access. And we've also saw a distinction between internal and external hard disk drives. And, that's pretty much the whole thing. So we're on our way to learning more about storage.